Guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our macOS development using AppKit tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at storyboards versus programmatic UI. Now, this is more a talking head video. We're not going to be writing any code in this video because we're just going to be talking about the concepts and what the differences are. So let's start with storyboards. Now, storyboard is something that uses what's called interface builder. Interface builder used to be a separate application from Xcode and where you actually write your code. However, now, as you can obviously see, it is built into Xcode. And this allows you to drag and drop user interface components onto your windows, and it allows you to configure different properties and associate, for example, button clicks with what are called IB actions in your code. It allows you to associate your user interface controls in the canvas with what's called an IB outlet version of your user interface control in your code as well, so you can reference that in your view controllers and so on and so forth. There's a lot that a storyboard can do, more so than you can do with the storyboards on iOS, which makes it a really great and very common tool when doing macOS development. And if you want to use Storyboard instead of doing your UI programmatically, you can do that. That's not an issue at all. It's very easy to do. However, in this particular series, we are going to be building our user interfaces programmatically. And that pretty much just means we're going to be building our user interfaces in code, and we're throughout the series we're not going to be touching main.storyboard unless we need to remove menu items and stuff like that, which we might do, we might not do. It depends on how things go. In a real-world application, there probably will be menus that you're going to want to remove because, for example, if you're not using the help menu in your app and you try to submit your app to the App Store, Apple will ask you to remove it. That kind of stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit about the structure of our storyboard file. You can see on the left side we have what's called our document outline. This is a hierarchical representation of our view hierarchy and view controller hierarchy of our app. Inside of both the document outline and in the canvas, which is the rightmost, which is sort of the middle panel, you will see three different things. The first thing is the application scene. The application scene contains our menu bar for our app. So you can see it contains our application menu, file, edit, window, view, stuff like that. This also contains our app delegate object. So in the previous video we took a look at what the app delegate is, and our application scene is what contains that object. So remember how I said from our app delegate we can add or remove menu items from the menu bar and menus in the menu bar and stuff like that? Well, that's how that works. The second thing that we see is a window scene. Now, our window scene is a NS window controller. And this window controller contains things like our Windows title bar, the different traffic light icons that you typically see in a macOS window for closing, minimizing, and maximizing. It's what you resize when you resize the window of your app and stuff like that. And then inside of our window controller, you'll find a view controller, which is our third scene in our storyboard canvas here. The view controller is what is used to contain a view, and that view inside of our view controller is where all of our user interface components live for our application. So you always have, at minimum, one view in your view controller. Now, let's talk a little bit about what a view controller even is, because I've used that term a few times. A view controller allows you to control the flow of data from your models to your views, and it manages the views that it contains. So these are very important concepts. If you're not familiar with UI view controller from iOS, NS view controller is very similar to UI view controller. And we'll be working a lot with different kinds of view controllers throughout the series, but for now, we're just going to leave it as is with a normal view controller. All right. Now that we've talked about storyboards and some of the more fundamental concepts of our application's user interface and how it works, let's talk about programmatic UI. Programmatic UI is actually a fairly simple concept, and that's pretty much, we're just building our user interface in code as opposed to dragging and dropping controls on a canvas, right? So you create your constraints yourself, and constraints are pretty much a way for you to specify the X, Y, width, and height of your components in an adaptable way, so your user interface can adapt when your window resizes and all that. It uses a system we call auto layout. It's also used on iOS, so this isn't macOS specific. The way you lay out constraints works pretty much the same in code. Now, when you're dealing with programmatic UI, this also means that you have to write all of your button actions, your value change actions, all that stuff yourself, rather than going into storyboards, going into the inspector on the far right-hand side of your storyboard file, or rather your Xcode window, and changing properties there and all that stuff. So it can be a little bit overwhelming at the beginning, but I'm going to go through it with you step by step as we begin actually laying out user interface components in the next video. And hopefully you'll be able to understand the auto layout system a little bit better, because when you actually have to write out the constraints yourself, it makes it a lot easier to understand exactly how it works. Storyboards are powerful, no doubt about it, and they are very popular. They're used very commonly in macOS development, more common than in iOS development. But there is something to be said about the value of programmatic UI and understanding how views are laid out, understanding your view hierarchy, and how everything is organized in that way. So that pretty much does it for this video on programmatic UI versus storyboards. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.